The 911 call came at 7:23 a.m. While I was supposedly 25 minutes away on the south side of town. Vicious animal attack at 478 Meadowbrook Ranch. The dispatcher announced, multiple units requested. Homeowner claims severe injuries from aggressive dog. My blood turned to ice. That was my address. My 13-year-old daughter Sophia was home alone with Max, our 11-year-old border collie who couldn't even chase rabbits anymore due to his arthritis. Victoria Pemberton, our HOA president, had finally made her move. She thought she had calculated everything perfectly. 25 minutes for police to arrive. 25 minutes to terrorize my daughter. 25 minutes to execute whatever twisted plan she had been crafting for the past 6 months. What she didn't know was that I had traded shifts with Martinez that morning. Instead of being across town, I was 3 minutes away, sitting in my patrol car at the Dunkin' Donuts on Maple Street. Unit 47 responding. I said into my radio, already firing up the engine. ETA. 3 minutes. The dispatcher's surprise was evident. Unit 47. Records show you're assigned to South District today. Schedule change. Dispatch. I'm practically on scene. My patrol car's tires squealed as I took the corner onto Ranch Road. 3 minutes. That's all I had. 3 minutes to stop whatever Victoria was doing to my daughter and our dog. The speedometer hit 60 as I flew past the pristine suburban houses that bordered our small ranch. Each one looked identical. Their HOA approved beige paint and regulated lawn heights, a stark contrast to our 5 acres of natural California countryside. Through the radio, I heard other units responding. Unit 23. ETA. 15 minutes. Unit 31. 20 minutes out. They were all too far away. It was just me. 2 minutes. I could see our property now. Victoria's white Escalade was parked at our gate, along with 2 other vehicles I didn't recognize. A small crowd had gathered, and in the middle of it all, I could see Sophia. She was on her knees next to Max, her arms wrapped protectively around our old dog while Victoria stood over them, gesturing dramatically with what looked like official documents. 1 minute. Max was lying on his side, not moving. My heart hammered against my ribs. If she had hurt him? I cut the sirens but kept the lights flashing as I approached. I wanted to see Victoria's face when she realized her timeline had just collapsed. The moment my patrol car turned into our driveway, I watched Victoria Pemberton's expression transform from triumphant superiority to complete shock. Her perfectly lipsticked mouth fell open. The papers in her manicured hands trembled. "That's impossible," she breathed, her voice carrying across the morning air. "You're supposed to be in South District." I stepped out of my patrol car with deliberate calm. Every inch, the 15-year veteran officer, my badge caught the morning sun as I adjusted my duty belt. "Officer Jackson responding to a reported animal attack," I announced, my voice carrying official authority. "I need everyone to step back from the animal and the minor." Sophia's tear-stained face turned toward me. "Dad," she was still holding Max, who I could now see was breathing, though clearly distressed. She sprayed something at Max, and he collapsed. She said she was taking him away. Victoria recovered her composure quickly, straightening her designer blazer. "Officer Jackson, how convenient that you're here. Though I must say, responding to calls at your own residence seems highly inappropriate. I'll be filing a complaint." I ignored her threat and knelt beside my daughter and Max. The old border collie's breathing was labored, and there was foam around his mouth. My hands found his pulse, rapid but steady. "Sophia, what exactly happened?" My daughter's words tumbled out. "Max was just lying in the sun like always. He wasn't even barking." Then Mrs. Pemberton drove up with these 2 men and said Max was vicious and had to be destroyed. When I said no, she pulled out this spray bottle and sprayed it right in Max's face. He started choking and fell down. I looked up at Victoria, who was now clutching her Louis Vuitton purse like a shield. "Mrs. Pemberton, did you administer a substance to my dog?" "I used a standard animal deterrent spray," she said defensively. "It's perfectly legal. I have every right to protect myself from aggressive animals. This dog is 11 years old, with documented arthritis," I said, standing slowly. "He hasn't been aggressive a day in his life." "What's in that spray?" She lifted her chin. "That's not relevant. What's relevant is that this animal violated HOA Regulation 17.3b regarding dangerous breeds on residential properties. We don't live in your HOA A. I reminded her. Our ranch predates Meadowbrook Estates by 40 years. Victoria's smile was cold. Actually, that's where you're wrong. Last month, the county approved the expansion of our HOA boundaries to include all properties within a half-mile radius of our development. Your ranch is now under our jurisdiction. She produced a thick manila folder from her purse. These are the official documents. You were sent notice 30 days ago. We received no such notice. I said. Certified mail was sent to your address. Not my fault if you didn't sign for it. She turned to the two men with her, who I now noticed were wearing matching polos with Elite Animal Control embroidered on them. Gentlemen, please proceed with the removal. Nobody is touching my dog. I said firmly. Sophia, call Dr. Martinez at the veterinary clinic. Tell him it's an emergency. One of the animal control men stepped forward. Officer, we have a legal order to remove this animal. HOA regulation clearly states, show me your county animal control identification. I interrupted. The man hesitated. We're contracted through the HOA. So you're not actual county animal control officers? Well, no. But then you have no legal authority to remove any animal from this property. Please step back. Victoria's face flushed red. This is obstruction. I'll have your badge for this. Jackson, do you have any idea who my husband is? I did. Actually, Richard Pemberton was a city councilman with ambitions for the mayor's office. He was also the reason Victoria had been able to push through the HOA expansion that supposedly included our property. Ma'am, right now my concern is the welfare of this animal who appears to have been poisoned. We can discuss HOA regulations after I ensure he receives medical attention. Dr. Martinez's veterinary truck pulled up just then, kicking up dust as he parked. The young vet jumped out with his medical kit, taking in the scene quickly. What happened to Max? He asked, already kneeling beside the dog. Chemical spray to the face? I reported. Approximately 5 minutes ago, difficulty breathing, excessive drooling, possible Zeicher activity. Dr. Martinez's expression darkened as he examined Max. This isn't any commercial animal deterrent I've seen. The reaction is too severe. He pulled out a syringe. I'm giving him a counteragent, but I need to get him to the clinic immediately. As Dr. Martinez and I carefully lifted Max into his truck, Victoria made one last attempt at control. This doesn't change anything. That animal is in violation of HOA regulations. I have a board meeting scheduled for tonight where we'll vote on immediate removal. 7 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. She turned on her designer heels and marched back to her Escalade, her two fake animal control officers trailing behind her. Sophia climbed into the vet truck with Max. I'm staying with him, she said firmly, reminding me so much of her mother in that moment. Rachel had been the same way, fierce and protective of what she loved. I'll meet you at the clinic. I told her, let me just document everything here first. As Dr. Martinez's truck disappeared down the road, I surveyed our property. Something felt wrong beyond just the morning's events. Walking the perimeter, I noticed surveyor's stakes driven into the ground at regular intervals. Fresh ones. They hadn't been there yesterday. I pulled out my phone and called Dave Hutchinson, my former partner who now worked in the county planning office. Dave, I need a favor. Can you check if there have been any recent filings regarding the Meadowbrook Ranch property? Your place? Sure. Give me a minute. I heard typing in the background. That's weird. There's a development proposal filed just last week. Pemberton Luxury Estates wants to build a golf course. Your property is listed as pending acquisition. My blood ran cold. I haven't agreed to sell anything. According to this, the HOA filed a claim stating the property will be available due to covenant violations. Jackson, what's going on? I'm starting to understand. Thanks. Dave, can you send me copies of everything? Already printing them. I drove to the veterinary clinic with a growing sense of dread. This wasn't just about Max. Victoria Pemberton was orchestrating something much bigger. At the clinic, I found Sophia in the waiting room, her eyes red but determined. Dr. Martinez is running tests. He said Max will be okay. But... She paused, her voice breaking slightly. Dad, why does Mrs. Pemberton hate us so much? I sat beside her, putting my arm around her shoulders. I don't think it's about hate, sweetheart. It's about money. Our ranch is worth a lot to developers. But it's our home. Mom's buried there. The mention of Rachel made my chest tighten. She died 3 years ago. Cancer taking her before her 40th birthday. Her grave was on the hill overlooking the valley, right where she'd asked to be laid to rest. I know, baby. And I promise you, no one is taking our home. Doctor. Martinez emerged from the examination room. His expression grim, but not devastating. Max is stable. But Officer Jackson, I need to show you something. He led me to his office, closing the door behind us. The substance sprayed on Max wasn't any commercial animal deterrent. It's a veterinary-grade sedative mixed with an irritant. This combination is designed to cause dramatic symptoms that mimic rabies or severe aggression. So someone wanted Max to appear dangerous. Exactly. And there's more. This particular combination, I've seen it before. 3 times in the last 2 months. All dogs from properties near the Meadowbrook development. All the owners ended up selling. Mayoff clenched. Do you have documentation on those cases? Every single one. He pulled out a file. Officer Jackson. I think your HOA president is running a sophisticated property grab scheme. I spent the next hour at the station, filing reports and gathering evidence. By the time I returned to the ranch, it was late afternoon. Sophia was in the backyard with Max, who was moving slowly but seemed much better. The old dog's tail even wagged when he saw me. But my relief was short-lived. Taped to our front door was an official-looking notice. Urgent. HOA violation notice. Property. 478 Meadowbrook Ranch violations. 1. Dangerous animal on premises. 2. Failure to maintain HOA approved landscaping. 3. Unauthorized structures, barn and storage shed. 4. Excessive lot size for residential zoning. You are required to appear before the HOA board tonight at 7 p.m. Failure to appear will result in automatic judgment and immediate fines of $500 per day per violation. Victoria Pemberton, HOA president. I checked my phone. 5:30 p.m. They were giving us 90 minutes notice for a meeting that could determine our future. Dad? Sophia stood in the doorway. There's something else. While you were gone, our neighbor Mr. Chen came by. He said Victoria has been asking questions about Mom's grave. Something about it violating burial regulations. The rage that flooded through me was hot enough to burn. Using my daughter and our dog to steal our property was bad enough. But threatening to disturb Rachel's resting place? Victoria Pemberton had just made this personal. I called Dave again. I need everything you can find on the Meadowbrook HOA expansion. Every document, every vote, every single piece of paper, already on it. Jackson, you might want to know something else. Victoria Pemberton? Her maiden name was Victoria Sterling, as in Sterling Development Corp. Her father's company has been buying up ranch land all over the county. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about one ranch. This was about systematic land grabbing, using HOA regulations as a weapon. Dave, can you make it to the HOA meeting tonight? Wouldn't miss it. I'll bring some friends from the planning department who might be very interested in Mrs. Pemberton's tactics. 6:45 p.m. Sophia and I drove to the Meadowbrook Community Center. The parking lot was fuller than I'd expected. Word had apparently spread. Inside, Victoria had set up the meeting room like a courtroom. She sat at the head table with 4 other board members, all wearing matching blazers. A projection screen showed a PowerPoint titled, "Protecting Our Community from Dangerous Animals." The room was packed. I recognized several neighbors. Some I hadn't seen in years. Mr. Chen was there, along with the Johnsons, the Martinezes, and at least a dozen other families from properties bordering Meadowbrook. Victoria called the meeting to order precisely at 7. Thank you all for coming. As you know, we're here to address serious safety violations at the Jackson property. She clicked to the first slide. A blurry photo of Max appeared, somehow edited to make him look menacing. This morning, I was viciously attacked by this animal, Victoria announced. Only my quick thinking with protective spray saved me from serious injury. That's a lie. Sophia stood up beside me. Max was just sleeping. You sprayed him for no reason. Young lady, you'll have your chance to speak, Victoria said coldly. Though I hardly think a child's testimony is relevant here. An elderly woman in the third row stood up. Excuse me, but I've known Max since he was a puppy. That dog wouldn't hurt a fly. I'm Mrs. Eleanor Walsh. And I've lived here for 60 years. Long before your HOA existed. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. Thank you for your input, Mrs. Walsh. However, as you're not a member of the HOA, your opinion carries no weight in these proceedings. Actually, Dave said, entering the room with a stack of documents, that's where you're wrong. Mrs. Pemberton, I'm Dave Hutchinson from County Planning, and I have some very interesting documents here about your HOA supposed expansion. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. This is a private HOA meeting, which you're using to make decisions about properties that aren't legally part of your HOA. Dave interrupted. The expansion vote you're referencing? It was never properly ratified by the county. You've been sending violation notices to properties you have no authority over. The room erupted in murmurs. Several of the neighbors who'd received similar notices were comparing experiences. Victoria banged her gavel. Order, Mr. Hutchinson. I'll have to ask you to leave if you continue to disrupt. Oh, I'm just getting started, Dave said. He pulled out a projector of his own, quickly setting it up. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to see is a pattern of harassment designed to force property owners to sell to Sterling Development Corp. The first slide showed a map of the county with red dots marking properties. Each red dot is a property that received HOA violations in the last year. Notice how they're all prime development land? He clicked to the next slide, and here are the properties that sold after receiving violations. Every single one was purchased by shell companies connected to Sterling Development. Victoria stood up. This is slander. I'll sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, I said, standing as well. And speaking of truth, Mrs. Pemberton, would you like to explain why you had 2 fake animal control officers with you this morning? The room's attention swiveled back to Victoria. One of her board members, a nervous-looking man in his 50s, spoke up. Victoria, what's he talking about? It's nothing. Harold, a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Dr. Martinez had arrived, still in his veterinary scrubs. I have 3 other cases of dogs being sprayed with the same sedative mixture, all from properties near Meadowbrook, all owned by people who later sold to Sterling Development. Eleanor Walsh stood again. My grandson is a reporter for the County Tribune. I think he'd be very interested in this story. Victoria's face had gone from red to pale. This meeting is adjourned, she said quickly, gathering her papers. Not so fast, Dave said. There's one more thing everyone should know. The golf course proposal for the Jackson Ranch? It was filed by Victoria Pemberton personally, not the HOA. She listed herself as the property's future owner. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Board members were looking at Victoria with horror and dawning understanding. Harold, the nervous board member, found his voice. Victoria, have you been using the HOA to force people from their homes? Don't be ridiculous. Victoria snapped, but her hands were shaking as she shoved papers into her briefcase. I've done nothing but try to protect property values and safety standards. By sending fake animal control after an 11-year-old dog? Someone called out. By threatening to dig up a woman's grave? Mr. Chen added, his usually quiet voice firm with anger. Yes. I heard you on the phone with someone, discussing Rachel Jackson's burial site. That was the final straw. I stepped forward, my police training keeping my voice level despite the fury burning in my chest. Mrs. Pemberton, I'm placing you under investigation for fraud, conspiracy, and false reporting to emergency services. I'd advise you not to leave town. You can't do that. This isn't your jurisdiction. No, but it is mine. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Sheriff Patricia Coleman walked in, flanked by 2 deputies. We received a call from Dr. Martinez about a pattern of animal poisonings. Then Mr. Hutchinson shared some very interesting documents about fraudulent HOA expansion claims. Victoria's briefcase slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the floor. Among them, I spotted property deeds, development proposals, and what looked like a list of target properties. Our ranch was circled in red, with a note, priority acquisition, 3.2 million profit potential. Deputies, please collect those documents as evidence, Sheriff Coleman instructed. She turned to Victoria. Mrs. Pemberton, you're not under arrest yet, but I strongly suggest you contact your attorney. As the deputies gathered evidence, Victoria's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. Board members were resigning on the spot. Neighbors were sharing stories of harassment and intimidation. The fake animal control officers had apparently disappeared the moment I'd challenged their credentials. But Victoria had one more card to play. As she was escorted out, she turned back to me with a vicious smile. You think you've won? Check your mail tomorrow. Officer Jackson, my husband sits on the police oversight committee. Let's see how well your career survives a formal investigation into abuse of authority. The threat hung in the air as she left. I knew she wasn't bluffing. Richard Pemberton had connections throughout city government. They could make my life hell. Even if their charges were baseless. Sophia tugged on my sleeve. Dad, are we going to lose the ranch? I knelt down to her level. Not if I can help it, sweetheart. But as we drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Victoria Pemberton had been planning this for too long to give up after one failed meeting. Back at the ranch, I tucked Sophia into bed with Max curled up beside her. The old dog seemed no worse for wear. Though Dr. Martinez wanted to see him again in the morning. Dad, Sophia said sleepily, Mom would have fought them, wouldn't she? Yes. Baby. She would have fought with everything she had. Then that's what we'll do. After she fell asleep, I sat on the porch, looking out over our land. 5 generations of Jacksons had worked this soil. Rachel was buried on the hill she loved. This wasn't just property. It was our history. Our memories. Our future. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Officer Jackson. This is Richard Pemberton. I think we should meet to discuss your situation. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. My office. Come alone. We have much to discuss about your future. And your daughters. The implied threat made my blood run cold. They were escalating. I screenshotted the text and forwarded it to Dave and Sheriff Coleman. If the Pembertons wanted a war, they were going to get one. But I had no idea just how dirty they were willing to fight. The next morning would bring a revelation that would change everything. Victoria's connections ran deeper than anyone imagined. And the conspiracy to steal our land was just the tip of a very dark iceberg. As I finally headed to bed, I stopped by Rachel's photo on the mantle. I'll protect what you loved, I whispered. Y promesa. Outside. A car drove slowly past our gate. It paused for a moment, engine idling. Before continuing on, they were watching. The real battle was about to begin. The text from Richard Pemberton burned in my mind as I drove toward downtown at 8:45 a.m. Come alone. Those 2 words carried weight that made my service weapon feel heavier on my hip. I hadn't come alone. Not entirely. Sheriff Coleman had unmarked units stationed around the city council building, and Dave was monitoring everything from his office across the street. But walking into Richard Pemberton's office still felt like entering enemy territory. His secretary, a nervous woman in her 20s, barely looked up. He's expecting you. 3rd door on the left. Richard Pemberton's office screamed power and intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and his desk was a massive oak monument to his influence. The man himself stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind him like a general surveying a battlefield. Officer Jackson, thank you for coming. He turned, and I saw Victoria's calculating coldness reflected in his eyes. Please. Sit. I remained standing. Your wife is under investigation for fraud and conspiracy. This meeting is highly inappropriate. Inappropriate? He laughed. A sound without humor. Officer, you have no idea what's inappropriate. Shall I tell you what is? Using your position to interfere with legitimate HOA business. Traumatizing HOA board members. Threatening my wife in front of witnesses. Your wife was attempting to steal my property through fraudulent means. Prove it. He sat down, steepling his fingers. My wife is an enthusiastic HOA president. Perhaps overzealous at times, but criminal, please? What jury would convict a woman trying to protect her community from dangerous animals? He slid a folder across the desk. This is your career. Officer Jackson, 15 years of exemplary service. 2 commendations for bravery. A widower raising a teenage daughter alone. Such a sympathetic figure. I didn't touch the folder. What's your point? My point is that careers can be destroyed as easily as they're built. The Police Oversight Committee meets next week. I've already prepared a presentation about officers who abuse their authority for personal gain. That's a lie and you know it. Truth is subjective in politics. Officer, what matters is perception. He leaned back, supremely confident. But I'm not an unreasonable man. I'm prepared to make all of this go away. Your job stays secure. The investigation into Victoria gets dropped. Everyone wins. In exchange for what? His smile was predatory. Your ranch. Market value. Of course, $3.2 million. Enough to buy a nice house in town. Send your daughter to private school. Secure her future. My daughter's future is on that ranch. Her mother is buried there. Graves can be relocated. I'll even pay for a premium plot at Memorial Gardens. The casual dismissal of Rachel's resting place made my fists clench. The answer is no. Richard's expression hardened. Then, let me be clearer. Next week, you'll be suspended pending investigation. Your daughter will watch her father's reputation destroyed. College funds will go to legal fees. And in the end, we'll still get your ranch. The only question is whether you'll have anything left when we do. He stood, moving to the window. Victoria found something interesting in her research. Did you know your property deed has a fascinating clause from 1923? Something about mineral rights and eminent domain. Our lawyers think the city could legally seize your land for the public good. A golf course serves the public. Don't you think? You're talking about stealing land that's been in my family for over a century. I'm talking about progress. Officer, that ranch is an anachronism. 5 acres of wasted potential surrounded by development. Your neighbors have all sold. The Walshes last month. The Chens are considering our offer. You're the last holdout. I frowned. Eleanor Walsh was at the meeting last night. She hasn't sold anything. Richard's smile faltered for just a moment. She will. They always do. My phone buzzed. A text from Dave. You need to see this. Emergency. This conversation is over. I said, heading for the door. Officer Jackson. Richard called out. You have 48 hours to reconsider. After that, I promise you'll regret this decision for the rest of your shortened career. I left without looking back. But my mind was racing. The Walshes hadn't sold, so why was Richard so confident they would? Dave met me in the courthouse records room, his face pale. Jackson, we have a problem. Remember those shell companies buying up properties? I dug deeper. He spread papers across the table. Sterling Development Corp isn't just Victoria's father's company. It's a subsidiary of Pinnacle Investments. And Pinnacle's board of directors includes judges, county commissioners, even the state attorney general's brother. So this is bigger than just Meadowbrook. Much bigger. They're doing this in 12 counties. The HOA expansion scam is just one tactic. They also use code violations, environmental claims, even fake historical society injunctions. But Jackson, that's not the worst part. He pulled out another document. 3 families who refused to sell had tragic accidents, house fires, car crashes, all ruled accidental. My blood chilled. Are you saying? I'm saying be very careful. These people have killed before. We spent the next 3 hours documenting everything. Dave had uncovered a conspiracy that reached into every level of local government. Properties worth millions were being stolen for pennies on the dollar, then flipped to developers for massive profits. We need the FBI. I said finally. This is beyond local corruption. Already made the call. Agent Sarah Chen will be here tomorrow. Her team specializes in public corruption cases. My phone rang. Sophia's school. Mr. Jackson. Your daughter didn't show up for first period. We tried calling. I was already running for my car. When did you last see her? She was dropped off by the bus at 7:45. But never made it to class. My worst nightmare was unfolding. While I'd been meeting with Richard, they'd taken my daughter. The drive to school was a blur of sirens and barely controlled panic. I called Sophia's phone repeatedly. Straight to voicemail. At the school, I found her backpack abandoned near the parking lot. Her phone was inside. Screen cracked. Security footage. I demanded of the principal. Now, the grainy video showed Sophia walking toward the building when a white van pulled up. 2 men got out. There was a brief struggle, and my daughter was gone. But they'd made one mistake. The license plate was partially visible. I called it in immediately. Possible kidnapping. White van. Partial plate X7B. Victim is 13-year-old Sophia Jackson. Every unit in the county responded. Within minutes, we had roadblocks at every major intersection. But I knew this wasn't random. This was leverage. My phone rang. Unknown number. Officer Jackson. Victoria's voice was sickeningly sweet. I believe you have something of mine. All those documents Dave gathered, and I have something of yours. If you hurt her, I'm not a monster. Sophia is having lunch with me right now. Aren't you? Dear? I heard my daughter's voice. Scared but defiant. Dad. I'm okay. Victoria cut her off. She's fine. For now. But stress is so bad for children. All this uncertainty about their future. Wouldn't it be better if you just signed those papers, sold the ranch, moved on with your lives? Where is she? Somewhere safe. You have 1 hour to bring all the evidence Dave collected to the old Sterling warehouse on Route 6. Come alone. No backup. No recording devices. Just a father who wants his daughter back. The line went dead. Sheriff Coleman was beside me immediately. We heard everything. I'll have teams in position. No. I shook my head. You heard her. I go alone. Jackson. That's suicide. They'll kill you both. Maybe, but I won't risk Sophia. I checked my weapon. Give me 30 minutes. Then move in. And Sheriff, make sure Agent Chen gets everything we've documented, no matter what happens. The Sterling warehouse sat on the outskirts of town. A monument to abandoned ambitions. Once it had stored agricultural equipment, now it was a hollow shell where desperate people made desperate choices. I parked outside. The evidence boxes visible in my back seat. The main door was open. Darkness beyond. Dad? Sophia's voice echoed from inside. I moved carefully. Hand on my weapon. The interior was vast and shadowed. In the center, under a single overhead light, Sophia sat tied to a chair. Victoria stood beside her. No longer the polished HOA president, but something rawer, more dangerous. Put your weapon on the ground, she commanded. Kick it away. I complied, my eyes never leaving my daughter. I brought what you wanted. Let her go. First, let's talk. Victoria began pacing. Do you know what it's like to grow up poor in California? To watch rich ranchers sit on fortunes of land while your family struggles? So this is about revenge? It's about justice. Her voice cracked. My father started Sterling Development with nothing. Built it into an empire. Then ranchers like you blocked every project. Every development. Every chance for progress. You sit on your inherited land like feudal lords, while working families can't afford homes, and that justifies kidnapping, fraud, murder? She laughed bitterly. Murder? We've never killed anyone. Those accidents? Pure coincidence that conspiracy theorists like your friend Dave twisted into something sinister. The house fires, the car crashes, accidents happen. Officer, especially to people under stress, fighting legal battles, worried about their futures. People get careless. Behind her, I saw movement in the shadows. Richard emerged, along with 3 other men, all armed. Enough talking. Richard said, Did you bring the evidence? In my car. Get it. I moved slowly, aware of guns tracking me. At my car. I grabbed the boxes but also triggered the silent panic button I'd installed years ago. Sheriff Coleman would know things had gone sideways. Back inside, Richard was examining documents by flashlight. Is this everything? Everything Dave found. Good. He pulled out a lighter. Amazing how fire solves so many problems. Évidence disappear. Buildings are condemned. Sometimes people even tragic accident. You said you don't kill people. I said we've never killed anyone. Victoria corrected. Past tense. But you forced our hand. Officer, you and that meddling daughter of yours know too much. Actually, a new voice said from the darkness. It's you who knows too little. FBI agents materialized from every shadow. Weapons drawn. Agent Sarah Chen stepped into the light, her expression coldly professional. Richard Pemberton. Victoria Pemberton. You're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy, and racketeering. Victoria's face went white. How? Officer Jackson has been wearing a wire since he left your husband's office. Agent Chan explained. We have everything. The threats. The admissions. The kidnapping. 15 years in federal prison. Minimum. Richard tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Dave appeared from behind a pillar and tackled him to the ground. That's for threatening, my friend. You piece of garbage. As agents secured the scene, I ran to Sophia, cutting her bonds and pulling her into my arms. I'm sorry. Baby, I'm so sorry. I knew you'd come. She whispered. Mom always said you'd protect us. The next hours blurred together. Statements. Evidence processing. Medical checks for Sophia. Through it all, the scope of the conspiracy became clearer. The Pembertons were just regional players in a national land-grabbing scheme that had stolen millions in property. By evening, we were home. Max greeted us with his usual elderly enthusiasm. Tail wagging despite his arthritis. The ranch felt different somehow. Safer. Ours in a way it hadn't been that morning. Eleanor Walsh stopped by with a casserole and a confession. They tried to buy our place last month, offered twice what it was worth. When we refused, strange things started happening. Dead animals on our porch. Threatening calls. We were going to sell just to feel safe again. It's over now, I assured her. They can't hurt anyone anymore. But the damage they'd done rippled outward. Over the following weeks, Agent Chen's team uncovered 63 properties that had been acquired through fraud or intimidation. Families who'd been driven from their homes. Generational farms turned into strip malls. The trial was a sensation. Victoria, perfectly dressed as always, showed no remorse. Even facing decades in prison, she maintained she'd done nothing wrong. Progrès de mon sacrifice, she said during her allocution. If people won't sell willingly, market forces must be helped along. Richard broke down completely, confessing to everything in exchange for a lighter sentence, 25 years instead of life. His political career was destroyed, his assets seized, his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about greed and corruption. But justice wasn't just about punishment. Using seized assets, the FBI established a fund for victims of the land-grabbing scheme. Families who'd been forced to sell got fair compensation. Some even managed to buy their properties back. Dave was promoted to head of county planning, with a mandate to prevent future schemes. Sheriff Coleman received a commendation for her handling of the case. Dr. Martinez became the official veterinarian for all rescued animals from properties involved in the conspiracy. The Meadowbrook HOA dissolved voluntarily, its legitimate members horrified by how they'd been manipulated. In its place, neighbors formed a community association focused on mutual support rather than enforcement. 6 months later, I stood on the hill where Rachel was buried. Watching the sunset paint our valley golden, Sophia sat beside me, Max's head in her lap. The old dog was slower now, but still with us. Still part of our family. Mom would have been proud, Sophia said quietly. We fought for what mattered. She would have been proud of you. I corrected. You were braver than any 13-year-old should have to be. I learned from the best, she said, leaning against my shoulder. Both of you. A car approached on the main road, slowing near our gate. Old habits made me tense. But it was just the new neighbors. The Yamadas had bought the Pemberton house after it was seized, turning the sterile mansion into a warm family home. They waved as they passed, their children playing in the back seat. My phone buzzed. Agent Chen with an update. Thought you'd want to know. We just arrested 17 more conspirators in Texas. Your case broke this wide open. Hundreds of families are getting justice because you stood up to them. I texted back a simple thanks. But the weight of it settled over me. One moment of being in the right place, at the right time. 4 minutes that changed everything. If I hadn't traded shifts with Martinez that morning, if I'd been 25 minutes away as planned, would we have lost everything? Dad, Sophia asked. What are you thinking about? Time. I said honestly. How small moments can change everything. 4 minutes saved our home. 4 minutes saved Max. She corrected. Our home was never really in danger. Not with you protecting it. Her faith humbled me. But she was right in a way. The land. The house. Even the memories, they were just things. What mattered was the family we'd built and protected. The community that had rallied around us. The justice we'd helped achieve. As darkness fell, we headed back to the house. Max struggled with the porch steps, and I made a mental note to build him a ramp. He'd earned comfortable golden years. Inside, the walls were covered with thank you cards from families across the state. People who'd gotten their homes back, who'd seen justice done, who'd learned that standing up to corruption was possible, even when the corrupt seemed all-powerful. The local news was running yet another segment on the case, the Meadowbrook conspiracy. They called it, complete with dramatic music and timeline graphics. They'd interviewed Victoria in prison. Her orange jumpsuit, a stark contrast to her former designer suits. I regret nothing, she'd said to the camera. Those properties were wasted on people who didn't understand their value. I tried to bring progress. They chose stagnation. Even now, she didn't understand. Value wasn't measured in dollars per square foot. It was in the roots that ran deep, the memories that shaped us, the love that bound us to places and people. Later that evening, as I tucked Sophia into bed, with Max snoring softly on his bed nearby, she asked, "Do you think there are more people like the Pembertons out there? Probably. I admitted. But there are more people like us too. People who'll stand up for what's right, who'll protect what matters. Good, she said firmly. Because I'm going to be a lawyer, like Mom wanted to be before she got sick. I'm going to make sure people like Victoria can't hurt families anymore. I kissed her forehead. I think Mom would love that. As I closed her door, I thought about the future. The ranch was safe. My job was secure. The corruption that had threatened to destroy so many lives was exposed and punished. But I knew this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Agent Chen had asked if I'd consider consulting on similar cases, helping other families facing the same predatory schemes. It would mean travel, time away from home, but it would also mean protecting other Sophias, other ranches, other communities from people who saw homes as nothing more than investment opportunities. I stood on the porch, looking out over our land. The stars were brilliant above the valley, unmarred by the light pollution of the development that would never be built here. Somewhere in the darkness, coyotes called to each other, life continuing as it had for generations. My phone rang. Sheriff Coleman. Jackson. Thought you should know. We just got word from Agent Chen. The Pemberton case has led to a federal task force on property fraud. They want you as a consultant. Interested? I thought about Rachel. About what she'd say. She'd always believed in fighting for others. In using whatever skills we had to make the world better. Yeah. I said finally. I'm interested. Good. First case is in Oregon. Family farm being pressured by fake environmental violations. Sound familiar? Do familiar. But now we knew the playbook. We understood the tactics. And most importantly, we had the law on our side. The next morning brought normalcy. Breakfast with Sophia. Feeding Max his arthritis medication hidden in peanut butter. Checking the ranch before my shift. But now it carried extra weight. We weren't just living our lives. We were protecting them. Actively, consciously. At the station, my desk had a new addition. A small plaque from the FBI, Consultant, Property Crimes Division. My fellow officers ribbed me about going federal, but there was respect behind the teasing. We'd all seen what corruption could do. Now I had a chance to stop it. The first Oregon file was already waiting. The Tanaka family, third-generation berry farmers, suddenly facing environmental violations that made no sense. The pattern was identical to Meadowbrook. Fake violations, escalating pressure, offers to buy at below market rates. But this time, they wouldn't succeed. This time, someone was watching who knew their tricks. As I reviewed the file, I thought about time again. 4 minutes had saved Max. Our ranch. Our future. Now I had the chance to give other families their own 4 minutes. Their chance to fight back. Their moment to stand firm. The phone rang. Mr. Tanaka. Nervous, but determined. Officer Jackson, we heard about what you did in California. Can you really help us? Yes. I said simply, we can, because that's what Rachel would have done. What Sophia expected, what our community deserved. The fight against corruption never really ends. But neither does the fight for justice. And as long as there were families trying to hold on to their homes, their legacies, their dreams, I'd be there. 4 minutes away, or 4,000 miles. The Meadowbrook conspiracy was over, but the work of protecting what matters, that was just beginning. Max barked from the yard. Probably at a butterfly he was too slow to catch. Sophia laughed from her room. Video chatting with friends about her plans for law school. Life continued. Precious and protected. And somewhere, on a hill, overlooking the valley, Rachel rested in peace, knowing her family and her home were finally, truly safe. The first Oregon case led to another in Washington, then Idaho. Within a year, I'd helped expose 17 more property fraud schemes across the western states. Each family saved felt like honoring Rachel's memory in a way that mattered. Sophia thrived in high school. Her experience with the Pembertons transforming her from a quiet girl into a fierce advocate. She started a club called Know Your Rights, teaching other teens about property law and recognizing fraud. The local paper did a feature on her, calling her the youngest legal advocate in California. Max made it another 2 years, defying every veterinary prediction. Dr. Martinez said it was pure stubbornness. But I knew better. That old dog had stayed to make sure we were okay, that the danger had truly passed. When he finally went, it was peacefully in his sleep, in his favorite sunny spot, where Victoria had once sprayed him with poison. We buried him next to Rachel, with a headstone reading Max Jackson, faithful guardian. 2012到2025. The ranch itself became something of a landmark, Law students visited to study the case. Families facing similar schemes came for advice. What had been our private refuge became a symbol of successful resistance against corruption. Eleanor Walsh, inspired by our victory, ran for city council and won. Her first act was to sponsor legislation requiring transparency in all property development proposals. The Jackson Law. They called it, though I protested the name. Dave's work in county planning had revealed the true scope of corrupted property deals. Nearly $800 million in land had been stolen through various schemes over 2 decades. The FBI task force, using methods we'd developed during the Meadowbrook case, recovered almost half of it. Victoria Pemberton served 12 years of her 15-year sentence. I saw her once during a parole hearing. Prison had aged her, but the calculating coldness remained. She spoke of rehabilitation, of understanding her wrongs, but her eyes still held that predatory gleam when she looked at me. "I've had time to think," she said to the parole board. "About families, about homes, about what really matters." They denied her parole. The families she'd destroyed testified one by one about lives shattered, dreams stolen, generations of work erased for profit. Even her perfect presentation couldn't overcome the weight of her victims' pain. Richard served 18 years before a heart attack took him in the prison library. He'd spent his time writing letters of apology that no one wanted to read, trying to explain how greed had consumed him. His estate, what little remained after settlements, went to a fund for property fraud victims. The real lasting change came through legislation. The Meadowbrook case became required reading in law schools, a textbook example of how local corruption could metastasize into nationwide crime. New federal protections were enacted for family farms and generational properties. The ranch remains in our family, now protected by ironclad trusts and conservation easements that ensure no future scheme can touch it. Sometimes I stand on the hill at sunset, looking over the valley that almost wasn't ours, and marvel at how close we came to losing everything. But we didn't lose. We fought. We won. And in winning, we lit a path for others to follow. That's the real legacy of those 4 minutes. Not just that I arrived in time to save an old dog and stop a cruel woman, but that our stand inspired others to stand too. That our refusal to be victims created a template for resistance that echoes across the country. The Meadowbrook conspiracy ended, but the Meadowbrook legacy continues. In every family, farm saved, every fraudulent scheme exposed, every corrupt official brought to justice. Those 4-minute live on, and somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, I like to think Rachel is smiling, knowing that her family didn't just survive, we thrived. We fought, and we protected what she loved most in this world. That's more than worth 4 minutes. That's worth a lifetime.